Welcome back, YouTube chooms. Ready for some rock and chrome? Alright, choombas, here we are, the Rockerboy, one of my favorite roles in whole Cyberpunk Red. This video is part of our ongoing series Expanded Role Guide, where we delve into the lore and mechanics of Cyberpunk Red's character roles. We'll start from an overview of who the Rockerboy is. We'll see how he's defined and what can qualify as a Rockerboy. And be on your guard, because there might be some surprises here, since the name can be deceiving. We'll then move on to the lore. We'll take a look at some renowned Rockerboys from Cyberpunk history and mention some flavor details that may help you in breathing life into your Rockerboy at the table, if you're playing one. And if you are a GM, this video is for you too, because it will help you better understand one of the most iconic roles in Cyberpunk, and even enhance the way you deal with Rockerboys at your table, so that you can give them the most gratifying experience with their role. If you happen not to be interested into the lore, that's perfectly fine. Use the timestamps down below to skip to the part of the video that most interests you. Because yes, we have some other stuff to talk about. The second part of the video deals with the rules for the Rockerboy and covers its powerful role ability, together with some recommendation for useful item and cyberware that may come in handy for a Rockerboy, so that you can add them to your own personal wishlist, or to your next session loot if you're a GM and you want to treat your Rockerboy player to an upgrade. I won't be giving you recommendations on which skills to put levels in, nor will I suggest you how you should distribute your stat points. That's for you to decide, and it's what makes your rocker unique. I think that Cyberpunk is not about min-maxing and stuff like that, so I won't be dealing about that here. This is gonna be a really long video, so without further ado, let's dive straight into our extended guide to the Rockerboy.
Check in, please.
I'm sorry, did she finally say anything useful?
So, first thing first, who's a Rockerboy? I think the database entry in Cyberpunk 2077 kinda nails the concept, even if it's 32 years later than Cyberpunk Red. A class of 21st century rebels who turn their music into a weapon and aimed it at corporation and the powers that be. They're unruly artists, street heroes, charismatic frontmen firing up thousands of fans at concerts that usually end up in riots. Their uncompromising attitude, politically radical lyrics and performances has granted them their own sociological status. Their fingers are as dexterous on the frets as they are on the triggers when words and music aren't enough to get their message across. Johnny Silverhand set the bar for Rockerboys, and not much has changed 50 years after his mysterious death. Rockerboys are still screaming their throats bloody about oppression by the system, though there are some, like Kerry Eurodyne, who are accused of selling out and abandoning punk rock disobedience for money and fame. Even if that were true, the world still needs its musical revolutionaries, and they're still among us. Maybe they're just starting to compose their first fuck you songs, and maybe they're about to stumble out of a city dive and throw down the gauntlet to the corpse and the badges. But when they finally start making noise, that's when the people will start to listen. So let's start from the name, Rockerboy. It comes from James Rockerboy Manson, a popular and populist rocker of the 90s who inspired what is known today as the Rockerboy movement with his second album, Bum Rush, full of overtly political messages encouraging the people to abandon their TV seats and get to the street to defy the authorities and fight against oppression. Rockerboy Manson was clubbed to death in 1997 by the British police in the United Kingdom during an Amnesty International concert. In the following riot, which took 2 days to quell, over 500 people perished, but Rockerboy's legacy survived. I think that in this iconic episode of Cyberpunk history, the very essence of the Rockerboy's role is condensed. To awaken people's consciences with heart, to oppose tyranny and exploitation, to stir up rebellion against the pre-established order imposed by insensitive and hoarding megacorps. And of course, always with style. Okay, so let's address the elephant in the room. In the time of the Red, the Rockerboy is not just a rock musician. Instead, the Rockerboy is a full-fledged cultural movement locked in a constant battle with corporations for hearts and minds of the masses. A Rockerboy is a rebel, a free thinker, and above all, an influential person. The Rockerboy is charisma personified, so much so that their role ability is named Charismatic Impact. What defines a Rockerboy is not the kind of music they play or whether they're musicians at all. No, a Rockerboy is someone who has the power to influence others with the sheer force of their personality. Famous rock stars such as Bruce Springsteen, Bob Dylan, and Johnny Silverhand can be Rockerboys just as Jesus Christ, Benito Mussolini, Martin Luther King, Che Guevara, Bo Burnham, or Barack Obama can. A Rockerboy can be a comedian, a slam poet, a street artist, a performer, a politician, a DJ, a social activist, an idol, an athlete, a rap artist, a vlogger, an orator, and so on. Whoever uses their charisma to influence people, especially if they fight for a specific cause or they want to change the world, can qualify as a Rockerboy. If you can sway the masses, if you have a message and you are able to get it to the people, then you're a Rockerboy. That's why I have some kind of preference for Rockerboy as the right term to talk about this role. Just rocker makes us think about musicians only. Rockerboy as a word has become a label for a cultural movement and a way of being that transcends music. Another word I think may be ambiguous is fans. This is used to refer to the Rockerboy's followers, the ones who know all about the Rockerboy and are willing to do things for them. Fan is a good name for rocker fans, but doesn't really translate well to politician or social activists, for example. They usually don't have fans, they have admirers or supporters. In any case, words aside, just keep in mind that the Rockerboy is defined by having followers firstly devoted to them. They can be groupies, supporters, or even devoted faithful of a cult-like sect. The Rockerboy can easily persuade, influence, and even manipulate those fans and make requests of them. Using others to achieve their purposes is one of the distinctive elements of a Rockerboy, and figuring out who might be their fan is one of the funniest parts of the role at the table. So, circling back to the whole Rockerboys are more than rockers topic, here's something that can help you. As a Rockerboy, player or GM, you'll need to understand what an analogy of attribution is. This is a concept from medieval philosophy, and it basically refers to the fact that sometimes, when a word has different meanings, the things we say about that word, the qualities, may refer to only one of its meanings, or they may refer more properly to just one of those meanings, and by analogy to the others. Sometimes, among those meanings, there is a primary one, the one that incarnates the qualities in the more appropriate sense. Okay, maybe you didn't need the medieval philosophy comparison, but I mean, with me being me, that's what you get. And I think you get what I mean. In our case, you should always be aware that a Rockerboy primary meaning is that of a musician Rockerboy, not a comedian or a politic. That is because of many factors, and not all of them were intended by the game developers. It's because Johnny Silverhand, Kerry Eurodyne, and James Rockerboy Manson are the best known Rockerboys in the settings, and they are all musicians. It's because the iconic Rockerboy in the core rulebook, 40, has a guitar strapped around their shoulders. It's because a rocker is, in the common meaning of the term, a rock musician. It's because the best known riot-inspiring, mass-swaying, fans-gathering, anti-corpus superstar in the time of the Red are musicians, especially rockers. In the past, you had the masses gathering in those squares to hear a politician give their speech from a balcony. Or you just leaned on the sofa while your president gave his fireside talks. Today, those who can rally thousands of fans are most notoriously rockers. Although everyone can do that, rockers have become known for that. So, if your player comes to the table with the idea of playing a rockstar Rockerboy, there's nothing wrong with that. As a GM, you can point out to that player that there are other options available and maybe point them to the table on page 54 of the core rulebook. Or you can remind them that Hitler, Obama, and other politicians are considered Rockerboys as well by the developers themselves. But that's where you should stop, because in many implicit choices of the game, a Rockerboy is still mainly a musician. Take a look at the table on page 54, for example. There you can find a very specific question. Are you in a group or a solo act? So it's clear that what the question refers primarily to is a musician. A group is a rock band. But this concept can be widened to refer all other Rockerboys. Maybe a comedian is part of a show, the politician is in a specific party, a street artist is part of a collective, and so on. Everything works if you keep in mind that all those parts of the game make the most sense when applied to a musician Rockerboy, but can be easily adapted to other kinds of Rockerboys. Okay, chooms, so how about we dive into some lore for the Rockerboy? First of all, let's start by saying that if you want to play or GM a Rockerboy, you may really need to be aware of how communication works in the time of the Red. As a Rockerboy, you'll likely be uploading tons of content on the data pool, taking advantage of the CityNet to reach your fans and use your agent as a way to stay in touch with them, and call for their aid when needed. These are the tools of your trade, even much more so than guitars and microphones, so I'd strongly suggest you to take a look at how they work. There are a lot of things you can do as a Rockerboy by just interacting with your fans on your garden patch. And if you want an overview of how these things work, you just have to check out my expanded role guide to the media, where I dwell on information and communication in the time of Red extensively. It's also my first video in English, so it'd be preem if you could smash the like button and help me create more content. But let's get back to us. How about we dive into the history and personalities of some of the most renowned Rockerboys in the setting? We already covered the essential info about James Rockerboy Manson, the father of the movement, let's say. So let's move to the best known Rockerboy in the history of Night City. Ladies and gentlemen, enter Johnny Silverhand. Johnny Silverhand might not be the first Rockerboy, but he definitely is the Rockerboy in the minds of many Cyberpunk fans. And that's not just because of his co-protagonist role in Cyberpunk 2077, because Johnny plays a crucial role in the Cyberpunk lore since its beginnings. Born Robert John Linder, he became an influential Rockerboy in the 2000s, when the Samurai, his band, topped the charts with hits such as Never Fade Away and Chipinin. Johnny was the lead singer of the Samurai and fully fledged rock star in the post-Rockerboy Manson period. Johnny has a background in the army. He fought in the Central American conflict together with Kerry Eurodyne, another member of the Samurai. Johnny owes his handle, Silverhand, to his silvery cyber arm he had implanted after losing his actual arm in that war. Johnny had a very personal relationship with the Hand, as he calls his silver arm, as a sort of mild effect of latent cyberpsychosis that made him temperamental and always on edge. After becoming famous as a Rockerboy, he got the reputation of a terrorist for his first opposition to the corrupted NUSA government and his adversity for megacorporation. He had a very strong personality and natural charisma and an undeniable charm. But as you can see in the video game, he could also be very impulsive and manipulative at times. He is well known for using the people around him as tools to accomplish his goals. He's narcissist and sports a massive ego, but also had true ideals. After the war, he was determined to reveal the corruption and oppression of the system, and used his music to deliver that message to the masses. Johnny was an ambitious man led by controversial ideas, and he has been in a lot of hot and cold relationships with some of the most important people in Night City, including Rogue and Holt Cunningham. As you can read in the Never Fade Away story at the beginning of the core rulebook of Cyberpunk Red, Johnny was there when Holt was kidnapped by Arasaka, and it was to save her, and later to avenge her, that he participated in the Arasaka Tower infiltration leading to the City Holocaust on August 20th, 2023. He was killed by Atom Smasher during the same fatidic night, when he used his fans as distractions after giving a concert right in front of the Arasaka Tower with his band, Samurai, reunited for the occasion. His conscience was saved in an engram and later stored on a relic just before his physical death. You can find more about this in Cyberpunk 2077, the video game. I also recommend you read the Black Dog short story at the end of the core rulebook of Cyberpunk Red if you're interested in Johnny. I don't want to spoil the surprise for you in case you didn't read the story, so I won't go into greater detail about that, and I won't go into greater detail about Johnny neither in this video. I mentioned him to give you an idea of what a Rockerboy is, and I think you got it. If you want to learn more about Johnny, you should start from the Cyberpunk Wiki, where you can find an extensive entry about him. I link it down in the description. And if you want to stay on YouTube, you should check out 3 videos from Wisefish, Laidback Gamers, and the Neon Arcade. Another iconic Rockerboy in the lore of Cyberpunk is Kerry Eurodyne. You can meet him too in the game, but he's been part of the lore as long as Johnny, as he was the bass player for the cult rock band Samurai. Unlike Johnny, he's well and alive in 2077, so he's also there in 2045. In an article from Cyberpunk 2013, he gives an interview where he talks about his friendship and collaboration with Johnny, starting in the Second Central American conflict where the two served together. Then they took the Samurai in the Rock Olympus before parting ways in 2008. The two stayed friends after that, even toured together despite being both soloists. Kerry denied being envious of Johnny, the more popular of the two at the time. Since then, Kerry went on and kickstarted his solo career, building his reputation as a legend of rock. For years, he's been riding a wave of popularity, resulting in instantly sold-out concerts and record-breaking plays of his songs. Kerry has a somewhat controversial reputation of being a sellout to corporations and having betrayed the essence of a Rockerboy by giving in to the corporations. Eurodyne, however, released several overtly political albums and refused those accusations. You can learn more about him in the game and in many Cyberpunk sourcebooks. Moving away from the samurai, there's at least one Rockerboy band I'd like to mention, Destiny. They were famous in the 20s, but are still widely known in the time of the Red. They have been called one of the most provoking bands of our time. They started off as a pop band, but grew a heavy political edge thanks to the influence of the band leader, Jesse Moore. More than one Destiny concert has ended with the band and their crew fighting off corporate assassins backstage. We could go on with other examples, but to be honest, Cyberpunk's lore about the Rockerboys is so dominated by the samurai and its members that almost every Rockerboy I have heard about is a rocker. It's a shame there are not many examples of famous Rockerboys in the lore who are not rockers. The only one I could find is Lucius Ryan, a community organizer in Watson Development and one of the few idealists working to make the world a better place. He is well known for his inspiring speeches and calls to actions. Go check out pages 304 to 308 in the core rulebook, where power players and badasses of Night City are detailed. Lucius is the only Rockerboy mentioned there, 1 in 28 individuals. If I may express a desiderata, as much as I love Johnny, and trust me, I really do, I think Cyberpunk lore should move away from Johnny's paradigm and start generating new icons for the Rockerboy role in the time of the Red. Otherwise, we'll continue having video games where the Rockerboy is not even a starting character origin, much to my disappointment. Okay, so we reached the rules part of the video, so here we will discuss Rockerboy's mechanics, and as you will see, there will be so much to be said about the Rockerboy role's ability. But before that, why don't we start with something softer? Good. Let's talk about the role-based Lifepath for the Rockerboy then. So here I strongly recommend you focus on that inclusive disjunction. Roll on the table or choose one option. Here's what I mean. If your player wants to be a rockstar, just don't have them roll on the table, because there's only one chance in 10 that you're gonna be satisfied by the result. Yep, let's face it, if you roll on the "What kind of Rockerboy are you?" table on page 54 of the core rulebook, only a few options are music related. According to the table, your rocker has exactly the same chances of being a slam poet, a street artist, a performer, a comedian, a narrator, a politician, a DJ, an idol, or a musician. Determining which type of a Rockerboy you are is a crucial part of your character. Actually, this might be one of the defining aspects of a character, so if you're the GM, don't force the players who have a clear idea in mind to roll and see what happens, because more likely than not, they will not be satisfied by the outcome. Someone who wanted to play a rocker may not like the idea of playing a stand-up comedian Rockerboy. On the other hand, however, if you don't have a specific character in mind and you just want to be a part of the Rockerboy movement, then I think you should roll on the table or use it as an inspiration for coming up with ideas of your own. As we said, the Rockerboy is, stripped to the core, simply an influential and charismatic person with fans, and they can be musicians as well as politicians. You can put that choice in the hands of the fate if that aspect of your character is not yet outlined, if you wish so. Otherwise, just pick what you like. And GMs, please don't force players to roll on that table. You want them to have fun, don't you? So just let them play whatever they want, especially since this choice has no immediate consequences in terms of rules. And rules themselves allow to choose one option, so rolling the dice is completely optional rules-wise. When creating your Rockerboy, take a moment to consider why they are edgerunners, if your campaign is about edgerunners, of course. There are plenty of good reasons, the likeliest of which is that not all Rockerboys are as successful as Johnny Silverhand, especially at the start, and they have to earn a living somehow. And edgerunning is not the worst option Night City can offer. Oh, and besides, Johnny Silverhand himself was an edgerunner too, so... Another thing to consider is that in the dark future, injustices have, if possible, been exacerbated compared to the past, making the role of the Rockerboy a perfect expression of the essence of the cyberpunk world itself. Although the messages can no longer rely on the old net to spread across the globe, Rockerboys can now take advantage of the new opportunities offered by the data pool. an open source platform to which anyone can upload their content, so that in the time of the Red, Rockerboys are even more autonomous than in the past. The Rockerboys' role ability is Charismatic Impact. It allows them to influence others with the sheer force of their personality. As a Rockerboy progresses in their role ability, they gradually get to influence more and more people and can demand increasingly greater demonstrations of loyalty from their fans. The first important specification is found on page 144 in the core rulebook. A Rockerboy can only use their Charismatic Impact on their fans, both in and out of combat. To turn someone into a fan, the Rockerboy may make a check by adding together the result of a d10 to his Charismatic Impact rank. To turn a single person into their fan, they must be difficulty value 8, while for groups the difficulty depends on their size. A small group, up to a maximum of 6 people, has a difficulty value of 10, while the difficulty value for a large group is 12. Okay, let's note something here. The rulebook does not specify a maximum number of members for a large group, thus allowing your Rockerboy to do just like Johnny Silverhand and turn all the people in a huge audience into his fans and then hurl them at Arasaka as a gigantic ball of human rage. It is up to the GM to decide whether a particular person is already a fan of the Rockerboy or not. If you need a guideline, it is usually enough to follow common sense and rely on the Charismatic Impact score possessed by the Rocker. You should judge what the NPC likes or dislikes, because if they actively dislike the Rockerboy, and that can be as easy as hating them because they play the wrong kind of music, then they can be turned into a fan. The specification is very important and even a bit controversial, but we will circle back to it in a moment. But what specifically does this ability do? Well, it's simple. The Rockerboy makes a request to one or more fans, and if they pass the test, these fans will do their utmost to please the Rockerboy. The larger the group, the higher the difficulty of the test required. It ranges from difficulty value 8 for individuals to difficulty value 12 for larger groups. Furthermore, the extent of the request a Rockerboy can make of his fans depends on the rank in the role ability. So, if a Rockerboy has Charismatic Impact at rank, let's say 1 or 2, the best they can hope for to obtain is that their fans buy them a drink or a meal. But with Charismatic Impact rank 10, the Rockerboy can convince their fans to risk their lives for them. When a Rockerboy asks for something beyond the loyalty level of their fans, their Charismatic Impact test automatically fails. So be sure to consult pages 144 and page 145 in the core rulebook very carefully to ensure you make reasonable requests. One last thing. A Rockerboy's Charismatic Impact rank determines where they perform. This ranges from small local clubs at rank 1 or 2 to major clubs at rank 5 or 6 to landing on TV at rank 7 or 8 and stadiums at rank 10. As you can imagine, these venues are particularly important for a Rockerboy because that's where their fans will be gathered, so it is while performing that a Rockerboy will be able to access his Charismatic Impact ability most profitably. It's one thing to try to influence the bartender who may have heard one of your songs, and it's quite another to convince all the members of a fan club to lash out against the corporate in the privé. Not to mention when a Rockerboy has an entire stadium at their disposal to use as a weapon of protest against authority. We need to add an important note here. Unlike other role abilities, the Rockerboy can use their luck to improve the chances of success of Charismatic Impact roles. This can be pretty important since often those kind of roles have the potential to be decisive for the Rockerboy. Before using Charismatic Impact, I suggest you read the whole description of the core rulebook. Yep, I mean the whole description, including the rank you don't yet qualify for or those that are lower to the one of you're currently in. That's because the various entries will help you understand where you can expect to find your fans, whether you're confined in a certain area or it can be even found outside of the city, for example. The entries also give you some ideas on how to access and use your fans, and they will list a lot of potential requests you can reasonably make. Then you can use them as guidelines to know what you should and should not ask of your fans at the moment. After all, it is safe to assume that the Rockerboy is aware of the magnitude of the impact they can have on their fans, and so should you, if you play a Rockerboy or if you're a Rockerboy's game master. When in doubt, whether the Rockerboy is asking too much from a fan, just go back to the entries in the role ability description and try to match your specific request with the most similar one among those listed. So now that we understand how Charismatic Impact works, let's talk a bit about this role ability. It has a lot to offer, but it also asks a lot of the player and the GM. As I said in the previous video, I think Charismatic Impact is in many ways similar to Credibility, the media's role ability. They both interact with the game world instead of a specific part of the rules. They both are role-play based, require some creativity to be implemented and some flexibility to have a meaningful impact on the game. They also share the same structure. They scale with ranks with an interval of 2, so rank 1 and 2, ranks 3 and 4, ranks 5 and 6, and so on. The ranks determine the magnitude of the effects of some parameters. For medias, they are sources, audience, believability, and impact, while for the Rockerboy, they are venues you can play, impact on a single fan, impact on a small group of fans, and impact on a huge group of fans. Oh, and at last but not least, they are both very campaign-dependent and GM-dependent role abilities. In the expanded role guide to the media, we have already seen why credibility is. So now, let's see about Charismatic Impact. Keep in mind that medias and Rockerboys have a long history of overlapping, and this time around with Cyberpunk Red, they still have many similarities. And if you ask me, that's not a bad thing at all, because I really dig all those role-play-based ability work and what they add to any campaign that is willing to incorporate them. Charismatic Impact can be used to accomplish any kind of thing if your GM allows it. If you want to read about some of the coolest, there's a link in the description below where you can find a discussion where the community talks about this topic. Let's start by saying that you can use your Charismatic Impact as a substitute for many cool skills if your GM allows it, for example. Imagine you have a guard in front of you and you need to enter that building she's guarding. Well, with Charismatic Impact, there are a lot of things you can do. If the guard is one of your fan, you can just use Impact on a single fan and ask her to let you in with Charismatic Impact instead of Persuasion. If she is not your fan, you can try to turn her into your fan, maybe by playing a quick riff on your guitar or by flexing your garden patch. If the guard is or becomes your fan, you can bribe your way in using Charismatic Impact, or just keep talking with her so that she's too distracted to see your lies sneaking behind her, using Charismatic Impact instead of conversation. Remember, if your Charismatic Impact entry explicitly covers the area, you can use Charismatic Impact instead of any other check if you want. Your GM needs to agree, of course, but you can and should suggest it. That's not to say that you should dump your cool stat value. That will be somehow strange for Rockerboy and may be viable in a few character concepts, but not on a regular basis. You're using Charismatic Impact because it's cooler than cool. Oh, and for you GMs out there, remember to use the Charismatic Impact DV, not the skill check one, because the first one is significantly lower. You cannot always do everything with Charismatic Impact though. Just don't exaggerate. The limits of your role ability are clearly stated in its impact entry. Use that as inspiration or as a reference for similar cases. But if you have Charismatic Impact at rank 2, for example, you can certainly convince your fan to buy you a drink, but it will be a very long shot to ask him to commit a crime for you, for example. For that, you'll need rank 5 or 6, or Persuasion, the skill. Another thing we should mention is that as a Rockerboy, you can use your agent to a devastating extent. Your garden patch, your Instagram account basically, is a database of fans you can always call upon in times of need. Does your armor need repair after the last fight with the tiger claws? Well, you can have your techie fan fix it. Just give him a call. Do you need someone to help you turn off the surveillance system in a complex you're planning to sneak into? Maybe that netrunner fan of yours can do you a favor. Do you need to enter the headquarters of a megacorp? Maybe a flash mob concert can do the trick after you send your fans against the main entrance with a rebellious speech, or maybe you have an exec fan. Or maybe you just need to be stitched up, and you happen to have a Ripidoc among your fans. That may also give you access to speed deals. Perhaps you need to sell something, and that fixer fan of yours can really help. He might even get you in the next midnight market. In general, if you need something, you can always post on the social medias and have your fans help you. This can be very tricky for a GM to handle. And if the other players at your table still have a tactical role-playing game mindset, or what I should call a video game-oriented mindset, they could even get annoyed by the fact that you can make their role abilities not so unique or needed anymore. I had an enlightening conversation on this over on Reddit with user Sverchelovak, where we agreed that this kind of reasoning doesn't do justice to what a fully developed character really is. A character is so much more than the usefulness of its ability role. So you should see the flexibility Charismatic Impact gives you as a strength, not a weakness. Another thing you should also be aware of is that some may think that your role ability is overpowered. Some believe it can trivialize some encounters, even some jobs, and that it can break the immersion of some players. I don't really agree with that, but some people feel that way. I think the one who should really agree with this kind of intensive use of Charismatic Impact is your GM. If they're okay with it, then go straight ahead. If they're hesitant, maybe agree on how and when to use it so as not to cause problems to your GM. Keep in mind that coming up with new and interesting fans NPCs may be a daunting task for many, so be respectful and talk to your GM. You can always not give a face or even a name to your fans, but where's the fun in that? It's cool to get to know your fans, isn't it? So I think your GM should create at least some in advance or improvise them and take note of how they describe them so they can come back in the future. If you plan to play a Rockerboy, you'll need to talk with your GM a lot. They can make your experience great by surrounding you with fans and letting you do incredibly cool things. And that's probably because you wanted to play a Rockerboy in the first place, but you should not be making their experience a nightmare in return. Talk with them. Ask them if they deem reasonable for you to use Charismatic Impact instead of cool skills for some checks. Ask them if they're okay with you interacting and contacting your fans through the agent. And most importantly, let them know what you think would be cool as a Rockerboy. Trust me, most GMs will thank you for that. And if you ask for a scene with a concert, for example, you're gonna have it. If you ask for more fans in the game sessions, that shouldn't be hard to do. And even if you want them to flesh out some of your fans, well, if they don't have the time or will to do so, maybe you can help them. Collaborative world building is a great tool in RPG games. Don't ever underestimate it. Oh, and for you GMs out there, if Charismatic Impact intimidates you, hear this. You have a fantastic tool at your disposal, and that's the freedom that the system allows you when determining who can be turned into one of your Rockerboys fans. The rulebook says that whoever actively dislikes a Rockerboy is not eligible to become a fan. That's a rule that many don't like in the community, and I think you can warp it as you can see fit, and no one will complain as long as you still allow your Rockerboy to do their thing. Personally, I don't think this rule should be taken as set in stone. No one rule should actually, and this is not a hard rule. This was just a tool, I think. You can use it, modify it, or discard it. For example, you could rule that very influential people are too self-absorbed to be a fan of someone else, or the cyberpsycho just don't have enough empathy for that. To be honest, if I played a Rockerboy and I'm doing one of my active campaigns, and you ruled that someone could not become a fan because he's into jazz music while my rocker plays hardcore rock music, actually I would accept it. Be reasonable and go with whatever makes the most sense. If you don't want your Rockerboy to transform a specific NPC into a fan, you shouldn't worry. You can come up with whatever plausible reason, and no one should dispute you. The Rockerboy is not about turning anyone into a fan, it's more about make your cult-like followers go to hell and back for you. And as long as you are giving good reasons why someone cannot be turned into a fan to the Rockerboy, and you're doing it for the sake of maximizing the fun at the table, everyone, including the Rockerboy, I think, should be on your side. Just don't use this as a way to keep your story on the railroad or use it as a plot armor for your beloved NPCs. Also remember that having fans is not always a good thing. They make more difficult to act secretly, for example, and sometimes they can turn into stalkers or even attempt to do your life, so it's not only about the benefits, isn't it? Celebrity has its downsides too. Ask Johnny Silverhand about that. Oh, right, you cannot, at least in the time of the Red, but anyway, remember when he was attacked in the alley with Alt Cunningham? How do you think Arasaka found Alt? Well, her mainline, Johnny, wasn't exactly hard to find, with that cyber harm and the place of his concerts advertised all over the place. Celebrity comes at the cost of enemies who know how to find you after all. You oppose megacorps and governments with your messages, and they know exactly who you are when you're going to play Saturday night. And thanks to the medias, they probably know the ones you love. A Rockerboy can be a powerhouse, but it's also the most endangered role in Cyberpunk, as John the Wise said in these videos. Because their name is out there, they're public features, and they're easy to target for their enemies, and sometimes their fan can turn into the worst enemy, as history taught us with John Lennon, for example. I posted over on both Reddit and Discord asking what people thought about Charismatic Impact, and most people think it's a unique and fun role ability. Many think it's also very powerful, and I kinda do agree with that, because in the right situation you can literally alter the course of a scene or even a whole campaign. Remember Johnny setting up a concert right in front of the Arasaka Tower before the infiltration? We talked about that before. Well, there you have it. As I said for credibility already though, please be mindful of your GM's preferences and your campaign style. If you're playing a published scenario with a novice GM, probably you should use Charismatic Impact with caution. Or maybe your GM just won't give you enough chances to use it, simply by not making you meet potential fans and stopping your agent from working properly, having contact not responding, and so on. In this case, you may end up using Charismatic Impact only to have some drinks for free, and that's all. To use Charismatic Impact at its best, you'll need a non-brew campaign with an experienced GM, or maybe even a free-form adventure with a moderately experienced GM. If you are in the kind of situation where the options you have are predetermined, however, you won't be able to use that ability very often. Another thing you'll need in order to get the most out of your Charismatic Impact, even in the presence of the right campaign and GM, is to be creative and proactive. Your GM won't just put your fans out there for you. Not always, at least. You should go and make people your fans. And after that, you'll need to figure out how to use your fans cleverly, what you can ask of them, and how can they be of help in the current situation. That's not easy, and that's not for everyone. You should also check with your party if they're okay with the way you're using your Charismatic Impact. If they feel useless because your fans can do whatever they can do, then talk to them and figure out a compromise. Remember, everyone at the table should be having fun. Knowing when to call for help by your fans and when to let your ally do the job can be an interesting learning experience, one you should treasure, and which will make you a better player overall in all role-playing games. This leads me to another interesting consideration, since I usually have at least some game sessions with smaller groups, up to 2 players and 1 GM. In those cases, the Rockerboy is an excellent choice for me, because it leads your edge runners to take on even the riskiest gigs without getting stuck because no one in the party can do a net run or can crack a password on that computer. The Rockerboy's best resource is people. And there are a lot of ways of using people in this game, which makes the Rockerboy one of my favorite classes in the whole system. They are flexible, versatile, and in the hands of a good role player, can lead to some amazing role-playing scenes. Let me give you one last tip. Not unlike high-ranking medias, fixers, and execs, a rank 10 Rockerboy can be hard to envision as an edge runner. Why go fetching that cargo for the fixer when you can have others do the job, and you probably don't even need the money anymore because you're swimming in gold and driving a sports car? When you reach a higher rank in Charismatic Impact, let's say starting at rank 8 I would say, you are gonna be having some troubles when it comes to figure out your Rockerboy's motivation to join a team of edge runners. So unless a GM is willing to make you the hero and make the whole campaign revolve around you, which I personally don't recommend anyway, you will have to figure out something. My advice is to have a cause, a message you want to deliver with your actions, and you're willing to put yourself on the line for that cause, risk your own life to ensure your message is heard. Give your GM something to work with. If they can hook you by offering a job that fosters your cause, then you have zero problems with character motivation. But also remember that you don't start out at rank 8. Hell, many Rockerboys die or even retire before even getting close to that. At rank 4, when your character starts a career, they are performing in well-known clubs, not stadiums. Then they can ask their fans to provide booze and maybe drugs, to do them a major favor or to sleep with them, not to kill for the Rockerboy or give them their life for them. You have a strong local following, but you're probably broke anyway, since art doesn't pay until you reach sky-high level. Considering this, exploit the fact that your Rockerboy needs money. That art is what they live for, but not what they make a living out of. Money is much easier drive for your characters to accept side jobs and edge runner gigs than it is ideals. When you start out, your Rockerboy is not Johnny Silverhand. Yet. Be sure to use that to your advantage, so that your Rockerboy can always be involved in the mission your GMs provides. Of course, as a Rockerboy, you should also have your cause and ideals. If you have the right kind of GM and you are a proactive player, you may literally create jobs for your group of edge runners by simply fostering your battle against oppression. Clever GMs can use Rockerboys to their advantage too, as they are convenient hooks for any kind of gig. And to be honest, if you're jamming a Rockerboy, as I am, I recommend you do exactly that every now and then. Find out what your Rockerboy cares about and present an opportunity to foster that cause. Everything will escalate very quickly from there. Trust me. Just be sure not to make the opposite mistake and make the Rockerboy the center of your game, of your story. And hear me, sometimes even the Rockerboy might dislike that, because their player may feel pressured and even worried that others are not having a good time because everything revolves around the Rockerboy. I personally prefer to keep everyone on the same level of importance and give every character their time to shine. Sometimes the Rockerboy gets to be in the spotlight. Sometimes it's the Netrunner or the Solo does. So, who is this role for? I would recommend it to players who enjoy role-playing, are creative and proactive. Even better if they play in a non-brew, at least non-linear campaign. If you like the idea of playing someone who can use their charisma to shape the world around them and use people as the main resource and be surrounded by a cult-like cohort of fans, well, the Rockerboy is a role you should try it out, for sure. On the contrary, if you want to just kill some guns with a whole big gun, or you don't want to interact with the game world too often, I think this isn't the role for you. If your GM is not willing to let you use your role ability, this might also not be the role good for you, or at least the right moment to play this role. But I think that, in general, a Rockerboy is a nice test bench, even for experienced players, and can help a new player grow a lot by playing it, forcing you to deal with celebrity and facilitating outside-of-the-box thinking. Oh, and this is also for those who just like the Samurai and Johnny, like me. As a Rockerboy, most of the items you will be buying are combat-related, because that's an area where you'll need a little extra to truly shine. Here, we won't cover all kind of items and cyberwares that can be useful to a Rockerboy as a character, because I think the list will be endless and it's frankly impossible to make good recommendations without knowing your specific build. What we do instead is to focus on your role ability or role flavor in general. I will highlight some objects and cyberwares that will help you to become a better Rockerboy. For the stuff that will get you to be a legendary edgerunner, you'll have to flip through the book yourself, and trust me, it's part of the fun of playing this game. Let's start with the items. Since the Rockerboy is not limited to be a rocker, anything that can help you sway the masses and get your message across will be a good addition, a good fit for your outfit. Also, keep in mind that the Rockerboy is the ultimate trendsetter, and Cyberpunk is all about style over substance. A Rockerboy can wear what no one else would and set a new trend, or mock an existing trend and create a new style entirely. So, as a Rockerboy, one thing I like to do is to pay attention to my clothing. If you have a GM who likes and gives importance to that factor, you're in for some great fun. You should also have clothes in different styles with a lot of flair and personality, maybe even adding your personal touch to established styles. Another staple for you is an agent. It gives you +2 to wardrobe and style if you synchronize it with some fashion wear, and in your hands it's an incredibly powerful tool. You can summon your fans, publish your content, chat with your supporters, and ask for their help at a distance, post your opinions, and create a flash mob. Handing out your number to a fan may be a strong leverage in a negotiation, but be careful because fans can be harassing at times. So if you can spare the edits, you probably want 2 agents or at least one with 2 different numbers. Just remember to pay your agency those, and if you want to call the fan without revealing your number, well, you can always use a disposable cell phone. An audio recorder is also quite useful for you if you don't want to use your agent to record sound. The quality is probably better than the agent and it can record up to 24 hours of sound on a single memory chip. It's a pro choice, and if you really want to look professional, you should go that way. Remember to buy some memory chips though. Likewise, a computer can make your life easier, but it's far from mandatory since your agent can do almost everything a computer can do. But the computer is probably much more comfortable. If you are a musician Rockerboy, you'll probably want a drum synthesizer, an electric guitar, or another instrument. These are pretty darn expensive for being purely cosmetic or flavor items. Regardless of the type, any instrument costs 500 eddies, and if they are electric, you need an amp. A pocket amplifier costs 500 eddies and can support up to 2 instruments with 6 hours per charge. And since you are a musician, you likely want a radio scanner music player. You can use it as a way to listen to music or to find underground radio stations when your message can be spread freely, without your pressing censorship of the media corps. Rockerboys are rebels par excellence, so you'll probably come up with a use for a glow paint. It's cheap and easy to find, and my Rockerboy never travels without one in his pocket. Nothing screams Rockerboy louder than an anti-corpo graffiti painted on the wall of a megacorp's headquarters. Much like the rest of the world, Rockerboys love their cyberware. However, not so many options pertain to Charismatic Impact or the general concept of the Rockerboy. In Countdown to the Dark Future, you will find some cool ones, but most of them didn't make the cut into Cyberpunk Red. If you like any of them, then go ahead and ask your GM if you can have one invented or created by your tech fan or ally. Fashionware is probably the most thematic cyberware category for a Rockerboy. Buy as many as you can. They don't even cost any humanity loss. If you combine cam skin and tech air, you get a +2 bonus to your personal grooming. And if you get at least 3 light tattoos, you get a +2 bonus to your wardrobe and style. But really, any fashion wear can be very cool on a Rockerboy. You could also invent some of them and make others create them, if your GM agrees. As for the narrowware, you'll have to get a narrow link first. This foundational cyberware is needed to install any narrowware, many of which have decent combat uses. But since we're here for flavor, take an interface plug for 500 eddies and ask your GM if you can jack in your musical instrument directly so that you can play with your fingers as well as your thoughts. If you're a musician, of course. In the cyber audio category, you have a few options if you want to internalize some cool objects for you. Keep in mind that these cyberwares are available as external items too, so only implant them if you can spare the humanity. The first one is an internal audio recorder, which can also be useful to record conversation and have evidence of the injustice you personally witnessed. The second one is an internal agent, so that you can never lose your device, and it also makes you cool just as V in Cyberpunk 2077. Third, we have the radio scanner music player, so you can listen to what you want without anyone knowing. You'll know why you want it when someone is lecturing you and you keep nodding while Never Fade Away plays in your ears, without headphones of any sort, so the speaker will never know they've been talking to themselves the whole time. With regards to internal cyberware, you have many interesting options, but one is strongly tied to your role, especially if you use your voice to do it. And you probably do, because even comedians, orators, politicians, and poets use their voice. I'm talking about the Audiovox, voice synthesizers that let you add +2 to acting and play instrument when singing. If you want to indulge in the Rockerboys' mostly self-proclaimed reputation for being exceptional lovers, you can consider a Mr. Stud or a Midnight Lady sexual implant. Let's finish off a list with external cyberware. There's only one I'd recommend for thematic reason, and that's the subdermal armor. Wearing a helmet is not always cool, let's admit it. Sometimes you want your face, biosculpted as it may be, clearly visible to your fans. Subdermal armor has you covered. Quite literally. It works as an armor with an SP of 11 and it repairs itself automatically at a rate of 1 SP per day of rest. And with that, I think we can close the video on the Rockerboy. Not though before giving you some sources you can use if you want to go into greater detail into this role, or if you want to get a point of view that's different from mine. First of all, I think you should check out the Rockerboy supplement for Cyberpunk 2013. It has been published in the late 80s, so don't expect any fancy layout or artwork, but it contains many fantastic insights on the Rockerboy. It is written on the style of a magazine, with a modern in-universe point of view. It contains info on Night City's club scenes, along with some bands and trends you can draw upon for your game. It also covers some Rockerboy icons such as Johnny Silverhand and Kerry Eurodyne. But that's not all. Inside, you can find an article entitled "Hitler was a Rockerboy," which deals with the crucial question, what's a Rockerboy? This is your place to start. If you have watched this video, then you can easily participate in the community discussion. I link you the subreddit and the Discord server I used to visit. Some posts are true gems, just waiting for your discovery, and can really spark some cool ideas to implement in your own game. I personally did that too, and the discussion I had over on Reddit helped me a lot with this video. If you want to stay on YouTube and watch other video contents, the best one I can recommend to you is John the Wise. His channel is full of very cool stuff and his explanations are clear and on point. He even dealt with a Rockerboy in a video a few years ago. Although the content is for Cyberpunk 2020, it contains many useful tips on how to play and GM the Rockerboy that are still valid, I think, in Cyberpunk Red. If you're short on time, you can check out this video by the Consave, which is a quick and useful recap of the rules for the Rockerboy. If you are more interested in the lore, however, then definitely go check out this other video by the Neon Arcade. It uses old supplement called Almost the Brave as a source, and it focuses mostly on the history of the Rockerboy movement and Johnny Silverhand's story. There's also a Charismatic Impact detailed breakdown in another video by Cybernation Uncensored with Rob Mulligan. It has some cool discussion, so if you want to delve deeper into the mechanics of the Rockerboy, this is the content you should be watching. Unfortunately, there is no Rockerboy in Cyberpunk 2077, no coincidence, the novel I have reviewed. And I am still reading the comics, so I don't know if any Rockerboys are featured therein yet. For a few interesting tidbits, you can also check out the Countdown to the Dark Future posts that you can still read on the wiki. I'll link them in the description down below, so you can access easily to them. Okay, chooms, I think we're done here. Now you have all the tools you need to understand the Rockerboy, whether you are playing or GMing one. I hope you found this video helpful. I did a lot of research in order to create it, and it was very fun interacting with you guys over on Reddit and Discord. And also to getting to read some old source books from the 80s, when I wasn't even born. Part of this research has been done by simply playing the game, Cyberpunk Red. I have a Rockerboy in the campaign I am GMing, and I am a Rockerboy in the campaign I am playing. As I said, this is one of my favorite roles in the whole game, because it's iconic, flavorful, flexible, roleplay based, and there's a lot it can accomplish without even drawing a gun. But I am afraid our time with the Rockerboy is over, guys, at least for now. This video has been quite a journey. Anyway, thanks for watching, chooms. This channel is still very small, and I willingly choose to focus on what I am actually playing instead of what's trending, because I like to convey my enthusiasm and expertise for the things I'm actually playing. RPGs are not just books, so you need to play them, not just to read them in order to really get to know and understand them. This is the philosophy of my channel. I do this out of love and passion. Anyway, if you wish to support me, I'd really appreciate any like you can spare, and if you feel particularly kind today, a subscription would be prime. Also, send this video, share it with your friends, perhaps some of them might be interested in the Rockerboy. If you found the video helpful, please check my other content on Cyberpunk Red. At the moment, I have the expanded guide to Cyberpunk roles and reviews and guides to Tales of the Red scenarios on the channel. I plan to implement a new, shorter format, the Cyberpunk Red NPC Codex, very soon. Until the next video, stay tuned, chooms, because Night City never sleeps, and neither does RPG.